Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Veronika, and I'm the founder of NIKA Project Space, and I will be moderating the talk called Crystalline Metamorphoses, Exploring the Alchemy of Healing and Transformation. The talk will be held between Sara Niroobakhsh and Wegood. Sara, it's a real pleasure to have you participating as an artist and presenting your project at our current show. You were born in Iran and you hold the BFA from Dr. Shariati Teacher Training College and MFA from Tehran University of Art and MFA in Art and Technology Studies from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. Currently, you are visiting assistant art professor in interactive media program at New York University in Abu Dhabi. You are working primarily with the intersection of body, science, technology, new media, and you spent the last decade experimenting with a variety of multimedia projects involving living tissue, chemistry, virtual reality, and performance. In the current show at NIKA Project Space, you are showcasing your project Tabalvur, that is translated as transformation from Farsi. Could you tell us more about this project, please?
Thank you so much, Veronika, and all the hardworking team of NIKA Project Space for having me, and of course, the missing curator, Nadine Khalil, for giving me the opportunity to be showcasing this project beside all this amazing female artists in the region and worldwide. This project basically inspired to be existed within a creative process of that happened to be as a result like two medium of performance and installation. So the project started with a research of how to create saffron-infused crystals, basically, because saffron was, for so long, was my medium, and I was investigating this medium as part of the Persian cuisine, as one of the very expensive spices in the world. And after loss of my mother, I was dealing with a lot of trauma, and one of my friends gave me a crystal which was red, and she believed that it's going to heal me. And later on, I noticed that doesn't have a healing, and it's actually very toxic, but inspired me to create this project as a to symbolize the life, death, and rebirth process through the objects, and also with use of my body to honor my mom's death because of the cancer.
It sounds like a very personal project for you, and saffron being the favorite spice of your mother as well. And could you tell us some more about the influence of Elamite burial traditions in your project and broader implication of ancient practices into your project here, like the symbolism behind using the terracotta jar? What research did you make to come to this exact idea of the performance?
Thanks about mentioning this terracotta, because not many people using that, and most of the people question is about what happened to you in the vessel, and like But I think the ancient traditions, like whispers, they still can be heard, they can be felt. I wanted to basically integrating this burial element method in this project, wanted to pay a homage to our ancient tradition, and also kind of symbolizing this not only dead but also the birth, because what I can see this vessel, it was like a cocoon, and also it was pretty much very personal to me. It was a piece of history that belongs to my region in Elamite, basically were ethnicity and period in Iran that they used to live and govern in south west of Iran for so long, and they were so influenced by Sumerian and Iraqi culture, ancient culture. And this burial method was pretty much very, reminds me of the birth, like the way that people pose were been held inside the vessels, which symbolize the womb of a mother, how to hold a baby. Of course, like with using this material, I was thinking somehow that this vessel look like a cocoon, but my materials, whether it's even the clay, whether it's like this saffron, they are the material of transformation. They are the material of birth. So I had some idea when I was creating it, but during this process, of course, like everything has changed. I went to exploration journey, and the whole medium was very inspiring to me.
Thank you. So it's a very research and scientific driven project. Could you tell us also more about the practical side? So did you do any tests before, like how the crystals will be formed on the body before doing the performance that you did in Chicago in 2020 that we can see behind our backs?
Thank you for the question. Yes, I did so many tests, partially on different part of my body. The results were very fine. The results were painless. But of course, there was no setting that I could test anything in full body before the performance. That's why we were doing some tests partially to make sure there is no extreme burn. Literally, that was where we are concentrated. But what was happened during the performance, it wasn't in that scale and that timing and in full sum. It wasn't something that I was able to do it one time before. And the reason for that, because performance are not like theater that you do rehearse. I mean, it's the medium that creates by the place and people, and everything needs in order to that medium fully take place, and you create that memory.
Thank you. And it really sounds like in the science when you have in vitro and in vivo testing. Wegood, I will now introduce you. You graduated with honors from Abu Dhabi University, and you hold a Bachelor of Science degree in Chemical Engineering. And now you're a Global PhD Fellow in Chemistry at both NYU and New York University in Abu Dhabi. You are a strong advocate of interdisciplinary research that adapts new materials in creative ways to find solutions in the pharma industry. And could you tell us more about your fascinating project and research of an idea of using crystals to fight cancer? And as we know, cancer is the leading cause of death around the world, and I guess each of us lost their beloved ones or friends or relatives due to cancer. My grandfather died of cancer. So could you tell us more about this research?
First of all, I'm really sorry for your loss. The reason why I started this project was partially fueled by losing a loved one as well due to cancer. And to give you just a little bit of background on cancer research is that the majority of treatments, in simple terms, they target specific parts of the cancer cell. So they try to remove they try to target certain organelles, which are basically, think of it as the tiny pieces that make up the cell, or they try to target the chemical pathways to stop the cancer cell from procreating and such. Now, the problem with that approach is you're not really getting rid of the cell as a whole. So what happens is that cell that manages to survive that particular treatment is able to mutate against this drug, which is why we have a problem with cancer-resistant drugs. And that's why a lot of cancer patients have to switch between a concoction of different medication. So for me, I don't really like playing the game of chance with anything. So I thought, why not get rid of the cell as a whole? You know, just give it no chance to mutate and get rid of it once and for all. That's pretty much the main motivation behind my project.
Why crystals? And what was your initial inspiration for that? Why would you want to proceed with studying crystals that could help to fight such a severe disease as cancer?
So to answer that question, I would say crystals have been used in drug delivery before, but not in the same way that I'm using them. So the main goal of my research is to try to target two things: trying to make the drugs more specific, so we just kill the bad cells, and try to reduce the chances of mutations and their ability to become resistant to the drug. Why crystals? So I'm doing my PhD, and my group specializes in crystals, which would be a very cliche answer, but the really interesting thing that really appealed to me was a lot of people, when they think about crystals, they think of something that just, you know, a sugar cube, you just put it there and nothing happens. You know, it's very stagnant, it's very dead, more or less. But our group proved that to be incorrect. I work with crystals that do all kinds of things. They explode, they jump, depending on the kind of stimuli. Some of them even self-heal themselves. So I think it's a growing field right now. There's more and more interest in it, and we were one of the first people to pioneer it. So I guess the question is, why not crystals?
It seems like it's really out of the box of modern thinking, and what is fascinating with art is that art broadens our perception of the world, and it helps us to think out of the box. How important is that in science nowadays, thinking outside of box and finding new solutions in unexpected spheres and mediums?
I have thought about this a lot, to be very honest with you. As someone who's hardcore in STEM, I mean, I have a degree in engineering. My interests have always been more on the hardcore sciences. I used to think that I didn't have any artistic streaks whatsoever. But then when I really thought about it after meeting Sara, and thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this conversation, I realized that we actually have a lot more in common with arts than we expected. There is this profound sense of creation that we feel whenever we conceive a project. So you start off by kind of doing a little bit of research, trying to find inspiration in papers and, you know, previous research done by other people. And you learn a little bit, and then you do a lot of trial and error. And there's so much experimentation that goes into it. Sometimes it's uncharted territory. Like my project, for example, I'm basically laying the foundation of a whole new way of drug delivery, which is uncharted. There's no protocol for you to follow it. You kind of have to create your own protocols. But the thing is that when you start a project, it's like having a blank canvas, and you have the freedom to paint it as much as you want or however you want. And another thing that I think is really interesting is that you really have to have this unwavering belief in your vision. Sometimes, mostly artists, from what I've heard, is you have a vision, and sometimes people around you don't really understand where this is gonna go. And my project was, killed twice. I remember this. It happened a couple of years ago. It was right around COVID times, and my project had been a year in. There wasn't much progress, and he was like, "Wegood, you're doing a degree. You still have to graduate. Maybe this project, we were too ambitious, and let's kill this project." And I was heartbroken because I had spent a lot of time on this particular project. I know he was speaking for my best interest, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this can go somewhere. And one day I was kind of pissed off. But anyways, that aside, I just added one reagent too many, non-toxic, and I experimented with something that was completely wild. Like, we have a protocol, and I was like, screw that, and I just did something completely, outrageous, and it worked. And I just kind of went back from there, and I still remember this. The first time I saw that one crystal using a really fancy microscope, it's very tiny. You actually can't even see it with a normal microscope. It's in the nanometer scale. And I took a picture of it and I hung it on my office because for me it was like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, because it came after so much labor, more or less, of like so much time. And I think in a way, when we showcase our results in papers or even in conferences and stuff, we're kind of showcasing our view of that particular art.
Wow, it sounds fascinating. I wonder where it gets to, because it's really great what you are doing. And Sara, Wegood, could you tell us how you met?
Yes, I mean, even the history of how we met was amazing. I mean, it was one of the day I was coming back from Dubai, and I knew that big event happens annually in NYUAD from the postdoc and PhD fellows that they do a tradition in most of the schools as famous of grad slam, that they have 3 minutes time to come and perform and present where the research are. And she was one of the researchers, a group of, I guess, 8 to 10 researchers to present. I remember I missed her because she was one of the first or second one, so I came late, but I had a chance to read over who were what are those research and who are they. And I look at that title, said the title of research was a crystal that really heal. And I was like, that's very interesting. I need to see her. And then I stayed and I went and talked to her. And apparently others from the NYUAD community also told her about my work about crystals. So it was like, are you Sara? And I was like, yeah, that's great. And when we had a chance to sit down and talk, I remember it was not only very scientific, artistic, expressive talk, but also very personal. I mean, if I may, I noticed both of us lost our mother because of the cancer, and somehow we found this a way as a homage to and like an honor and tribute to our mother to pursue in two different, I can't say two different way, but kind of two parallel way which for her, that was a crystal that really hurt. For me, it was like a crystal that, but also healed, but in a different way. I mean, aren't they materials a storyteller? I think that's what we both of us end up to understand, like the materials, sometimes the whole concept and could be the whole medium, right? So, and for me also, that was the chance, like using the scientific research, taking it to my lab and use it as my palette of artistic expression.
I'll just add one more thing, which I don't think I told you about, is when we were preparing for the grad slam, we had mentors who were kind of helping us prepare for it. And the reason why I came into conversation with that particular mentor is because I was being too stiff in my speech. I had like a lot of facts, I had a lot of information. It was quite devoid of emotions, to be honest. And I think as scientists, we kind of don't really deal with emotions as much. We don't really talk about the personal aspect of things. And for me, being like vulnerable and having to speak about losing a loved one to cancer, having to talk about the kind of internal struggle a little bit was very nerve-wracking. And I remember I was talking to the mentor, and he was like, your story is really interesting because I know this one lady, her name is Sara, and she made this amazing, performance, and she became one with the crystal. And I was like, I need to meet this person. And then, like she said, right after my talk, I ran into her and I heard her say something about crystals. And I was like, Sara? She was like, yes. And I felt like a stalker, but in a good way. So, yeah.
Yeah, I remember you talk about it, that how difficult it was to basically share emotion, even with a small group of friends or family.
Yeah.
And then to me, like, wow, here I am. I'm fully crystallized.
That was actually quite inspiring. Like when I thought about how how out there you were with your experience. I think that's very courageous, for one. And that's one thing I'm quite jealous of artists in, is their ability to be so fluid and so expressive in a way, because that same mentor was trying to teach us to the way you walk on stage, embody this animal, and everyone was just like stiff as a ton of bricks. Like everyone was just like, what are you, what? But so I think this is something I really think we can learn from artists, the ability to kind of just go with the flow and not try to control everything.
Deal with the invisible,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, that's the whole point of it, like dealing with the invisible, either animal, like being, or even a feeling or emotion,
Yeah.
right? So how you embody that now.
Yeah. And how you bring it across is definitely, it's a skill.
And speaking about the emotional part, you mentioned that you haven't seen the installation and Tabalvur performance by Sara, recorded performance before, and you were confronted with this artwork just half an hour ago. So how do you feel? Did it impacted your perspective on the aesthetic and emotional dimensions of your work?
To be honest, I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I've never seen the video, like she just said, and I was like, okay, maybe it's gonna be like one big thing shaped like a crystal, or like she described it to me like twice, and I just couldn't really envision it. And I've never heard of someone doing something like that. So it was really, really out of the box, and I thought it was brilliant, to be honest, because it's not something I didn't know how she came up with it. I was like, this is like really, really interesting. And when I saw how sharp the crystals are, when they finally managed to like break her free from the vase and everything, I'm like, she managed to stay in there for 2+ hours? 3 hours almost, okay, 2 hours. And I was like, the fact that she was able to do that, and you can really see the different stages that, kind of crosses her face as the time goes on, like when you see the time lapse. And yeah, I thought it was brilliant. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, I can't really have an artistic point of view of it because it's not my forte, but to see someone so dedicated to put their experience forward and express it so vivaciously, I'm still speechless. So yeah, I would say speechless would be the summary of my reaction to her video.
Yes, it's really about pushing the boundaries and pushing the boundaries of performance, of body as well, which is very radical. And even without the sound, you can feel this energy. This is a very powerful piece. And so you were immersed in this terracotta vessel filled with sodium, borate, and saffron for 2 hours. And how does it represent the dialogue for you between the scientific process of crystallization and artistic expression of transformational journey?
If I want briefly to put it together as a sentence, this 2-hour immersion, it was a healing story. It was talking about the duality of coexistence between life and death, or birth and rebirth, if I put it this way, and how both of this come together, this artistic expression and this scientific research, because how I could see it is just maybe this crystal could create a bridge, a crystallized bridge between this two field, and show how basically they became one as together. They serve one core meaning together, as Dr. Awad also working. This is a journey of healing, that what she's doing, and I'm doing this journey in my own way, and I was basically exploring it with an artistic vision and medium to tell this story to the world, while basically is like picking the threads while they are woven all together, and give people an idea of, or share human history of the past and now, and this between this medium, which is fragile, but also it's became an eternal medium.
Thank you. Wujud, what do you think the collaboration between a scientist and the artist, how could it be? In which form can it be? Can it take? And how can it challenge the traditionally established boundaries between science and art? And how does this intersection, how could it enrich both fields, especially your field, your scientific field as well?
And we would be obviously very happy to help with the crystallization process, because that's what we do. I think we have the materials, we just don't know what to do with it sometimes. Especially, I was telling Sara, she's inviting her to my lab so that we can show her different samples and the cool things they can do. We have a lot of really cool things that we can scientifically characterize them for you, but then, what she's done is, it's absolutely astounding, and how powerful she's transformed the salt and za'afaran to this. It's really special, and I think more can be done with what we have, especially that we can have a different twist on what they do and maybe have it resemble something completely different. Yeah.
I mean, your research also very quite groundbreaking. And I think, if I may add something to what you said, I mean, we can't, in none of this field, going to have significant result and meet somewhere together unless we breaking the boundaries of what it calls science or what it calls art. Like, I was, as a person who wanted to choose a field so many times, stand in two ways of art and science and where I should take. Beside this fact that what I chose, even though that I got admitted to university those days to study molecular biology, but I refused to go because I believe in art. And the reason for that, because I thought we need to become someone more than our major that we are taking. And I always tell my students that, or people that ask me, saying that you're a bio artist, I mean, or like scientist, I'm like, we are user of all of this, of what you want to say, what you want to talk about, whether as a scientist to breaking the boundaries of the field by this experiment that you were doing, which I heard of it a lot, like in the scientific field, like you go by the normal, like a standard practice of following a certain protocol to reach to a result, and for years doing their error and trial, and you don't get there. And there are like, I remember an example of 7 years, a group like practicing to reach out to a certain blue color with the use of a material, and after 7 years they made a mistake, and that mistake lead like to blue color. So it is basically going beyond something that is normal, and we inspire each other constantly. And it's not making art that I'm obligated to make art and I'm obligated to do science. This is looking even at a medium such as crystal more than itself as a material, to learn from this material, which is alive. Like we had discussion about this, that, or you mentioned about how crystals can be explode, jump, or
It's a beautiful topic to talk about, because actually science and art, they have a lot in common. It's both the disciplines where we explore the world, the outer world, the inner world, our reaction, perception, we broaden our vision of the world, and it's also very creative. Scientists are creators as well. Artists are creators, and a lot of the works that are presented in this show, they couldn't have been created without scientific research that was done during the existence of humanity as well. And I guess scientists also have inspiration, as you mentioned, so you need to get it from somewhere. Sometimes the most crazy ideas that seem impossible at first, they can become very real, and they can lead to an important scientific breakthrough. And for that you need to think outside of the box. You have to be multidisciplinary. So now it's not enough to be very specialized in your field. You need to know more, to perceive more, and art is a very powerful means of communication of ideas and concepts that that the brain can transform into something else as well. So how do you think that humanity can benefit from from fostering the interconnection and communication between art and science, and what medium, what kind of initiatives could be done and could be created to foster that process?
I think whether it's science, which is going to be expressed most of the time as paper, or artistic work, which been either published or viewed in the gallery exhibition, they are all a catalyst for dialogue and to talk. I mean, I often think that the art is created when there is momentum that people can be involved and talk and express, and that helps this medium touch and that concept to emerge from that moment. Is not the moment that a painter paints, because that itself take the agency from that. And of course, like for exhibition like this, you give people the chance to, whether it's my work or like Christina's work or other artists' work or Dalia's work, they can see the beauty of cycle of life, the body, the something that maybe they didn't pay attention through a different lens now, while the artist, for example, picking the medium of the idea of sweating, or for me, the idea of, for example, grief, and for others, the body, or the cuisine or food. So that gives a chance for people to step in and take the agency, and then the medium grows and expand.
I could add just one quick thing to what you said, which is I think the dichotomy between art and science is kind of recent, because if you look back in history, you have the cavemen who basically squished up fruits and, did paintings on the wall to dry and to express themselves. And if you, speed up through history a little bit, you have Leonardo da Vinci, who's an amazing artist, but he's also known for his optical illusions and his scientific designs. So I think, even if you think about it this way, my university, I fall under the Department of Arts and Sciences, so they kind of go hand in hand. I really think that people are way too focused on specializing into like one particular field, that they're not opening their horizons to meeting people who are, from a completely different field in their view. So I think having more open dialogues and kind of sharing our work, not just in like specialized conferences, but even in public forums would be really nice. Because sometimes I look at something and I see it as, a method to do something, and then Sara would look at it and be like, oh, this is a great analogy of, describing something completely different in an artistic way. So I think being able to share that information and kind of have a collaboration where people get to work together closely and kind of translate what they have into kind of two different projects, or even the same project. And aside from that, I also think I think art is a bit underrated, to be honest, unfortunately. I think artists do something that's very brave and very important, which is communicate. Like when you see a painting, you don't need to read a 5-page review to know what this painting is about. You could, but when you look at something, sometimes it makes you feel a certain way, and you kind of have that communication just from looking at it. And I think it's really powerful, and I think a lot of the publications are now making sure to have an abstract, which is an image, to kind of give the reader a quick way of finding out what the paper is about. And usually some of the best papers I've read were the ones that were the easiest to understand and had some of the more beautiful graphics, even if they're simple, but they were easy to see and they were very like descriptive in a way. So I think art is an amazing tool that more people should be leveraging, to be honest. And yeah, I can't imagine doing what you do, because honestly, it's terrifying in a way, because it's so open and so fluid and so out there. Definitely, I think it would be great to see what the future holds for a collaboration.
Thank you. I guess it's what the humanity needs now. Like, the world is so divided right now, and art is a very powerful mean of uniting people.
If we think about a crystal as a time capsule, I'm just going to put it under a microscope and ask you a question, each one. Would how does crystal heal cancer? And Sara, what does it feel during that 2 hours when you were inside that terracotta?
I really like what you said about it being a time capsule, because that was kind of the mental image I had when I heard about your project. I was like, she's gonna be in this like huge crystal just frozen in time. And I thought it was like, that was the mental image I had, which I thought was brilliant. How can a crystal heal cancer? I can't go into the details of it yet because it's still unpublished, but kind of going back to what I said earlier in my introduction, it's by kind of targeting only the cancer cells, where we have this really specific coating that we've designed. And so basically we have a crystal and then we coat it, and then we take it, and once we inject it or deliver it to the cancer cells, it's able to recognize a cancer cell, go inside, and then we kind of give the crystal command to get rid of it in a simple manner. It's sort of like a stealth, assassin kind of thing. I'm trying to make it sound cool. I'm a nerd. It doesn't really work. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
That's a very difficult question for me to answer, but I will anyway. When I encounter crystals with my body, it was a very close contact. It had 3 stages. So the first stage was very friendly stage. As it appears, I enjoyed it. It was very calming, numbing encounter. But then after half an hour, it became a harsh material and started tightening my body, and it was very difficult to move, difficult to breathe. This is what I remember now. I had to breathe short, like, because I didn't want my chest to move a lot, and that was one of the causes probably also to tighten my blood vessels, and it caused serious headache. And then the last stage, which was it was very, very difficult to even exist within this material. It was taking over me. Don't know if you guys had a chance to go to any salt lake and you see some of those garbages that is there, and they became completely different forms and material and dissolve. But to me, it wasn't basically the pain only physiologically something. It was also the mental damages was difficult. I mean, I became completely different person. From the beginning, I was like, with being numb, and I started ignoring everything around me. And then the moment that the pain started to come, because it was a serious pain, I trying to distract myself. There was a board, a safety board, that there was so many instruction, because we knew that probably I might just be disconnected at some point. So there was instruction to the whole crew member that how to follow. So for example, they put some music, like the music you listening, they were music that I was listening, so they wanted to create that medium as a connection to keep me still in this world. And then it wasn't enough. I was like, shut that down. And then they're like, okay, so what are you watching these days? And I was like, I remember I was watching a Netflix show. It was an Italian show, and I was like, okay, let me put that show for you. And they put that show for 5 minutes, and I was like, shut that. I can't continue watching this. And I was getting very annoyed by every single tiny things. And all of a sudden, I became my mother the last days of her life, when she was very difficult for her because of the breast cancer became the lung cancer later, and she couldn't even breathe. She couldn't even smell anything. I remember we caught an apple, and she was seated beside us, and she left, and she was like, I can't even smell the apple. And I was like, completely start losing it. And at some point in performance, I started crying, because that was the day of annual deaths of my mother, emotional enough for me, but also becoming herself. It was another encounter with the crystals, and this transformative journey that under all this heat and pressure, I'm not gonna get dissolved, but I'm gonna become a crystal or a diamond. Yes.
Thank you.